Welcome into the Hard Count, the people show for every single thing that you know and that you love about college football. It happens here, baby, on a daily basis on the On3 YouTube channel, on the Hard Count. We're going to be joined by Josh Newberg for a pretty large chunk on the show. So make sure that you're settled, got your snack, got your socks on tight, about to knock them off. Going to be a lot to talk about throughout this program. So fired up to have you with us. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, to the party, love to have you. No time like the present. We got a lot to get into. The transfer portal madness is continuing, and it used to be within the transfer circuit. Like 5 years ago, it was, hey, kid's going to transfer. He's then going to sit out for a year, and then eventually he'll have an impact on the field. No more is that the case. Now we have insight as to where they're actually visiting. Got a couple of big-time visitors that I want to make sure we talk about, give you some intel, give you some analysis. Are they a fit? Are they not a fit? We'll talk about that in spades. Then we bring on the man, the myth, the legend, Josh Newberg, national recruiting analyst for On3. He's a busy man, keeping the phone charged, keeping the phone on ring as opposed to vibrate. A lot going on now as we got National Signing Day right around the corner. Going to bring him on to talk about a couple of things, one of which being Florida State and how they're a player in the portal right now. Also going to talk about everybody's favorite coach right now, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. What can we expect from him on National Signing Day? You remember a year ago, Coach Prime was cooking and got Travis Hunter to flip on signing day to come and join him at Jackson State. So we're going to talk about what we can expect from Colorado. Will they make a late push? Going to get Josh's thoughts. Then rolling that into some more recruiting talk, talking about the Georgia Bulldogs, currently sitting at the number 2 class. Looks like they're going to stay there. But I want to hear Josh's thoughts as to what we can expect from Georgia going forward and just why they are so dominant on the recruiting trail. A ton to unpack. They're going to give you my thoughts as well. Going to finish this whole thing out talking about the X factors in the Fiesta Bowl. Talked about the Peach Bowl on our last live show on Tuesday. Going to give you the X factors for Michigan, TCU, because in big games like that, on the big stages, sometimes it's the supporting actors that end up stepping into the spotlight. So have a lot of fun there and break that one down for you. And then at the end of the whole program, you know the drill if you've been here a while. If you're not, if you're new, we're glad to have you. Get in the live chat right now. Hit us with your questions because Nick Brake is the keeper of the queue, and we want to get to your thoughts and feelings, concerns as most effectively, as efficiently as possible. When you get those in the chat right now, that's how we do it. You join the party. That's how we get down around here. As promised, the transfer portal madness continues, and we have a good feel as to where these kids are now visiting. It's the day and age of modern college football. Some very big-time visitors taking big-time visits, if you catch my drift. The number 1 player in the transfer portal, according to On3, Fentrell Cypress, was all ACC a season ago. He is obviously in the portal. He's taking a visit as we speak, as we're live on air right now, to the Florida State University. This would be a huge get, as Josh Newberg is about to join us here in a second, in about a segment or two, rather, and talk about how Florida State's been a player in the portal in previous years and how this year may not be any different. This would be a huge domino to have fallen for that Florida State program and for that Florida State defense. Just to have a guy like Fentrell Cypress, I believe he only allowed like 18 receptions on the year, which, folks, if you don't know, that's stupid. To have someone like that to line up outside and take away the number 1 wide receiver completely changes the way that you can play the game defensively. So Fentrell Cypress on a visit right now to Florida State. Sounds like that's the only visit he's taking before the dead period. Keep an eye on his recruitment because that is a very, very big fish and someone you will want to make sure you have tabs on if he does end up being at a school your school plays, or maybe he's going to your school in general. But right now, visiting Florida State, a very impactful, very important visit for the Seminoles. Now, Grayson McCall, there was some smoke around this. He is Coastal Carolina's quarterback. He's going to play in the bowl game. He is expected to take a visit to Auburn. Now, we had said this previously, that this fit makes a ton of sense for us. A guy who's started over 30 games, or at least played in over 30 games, 8 interceptions his entire career, over 70 touchdowns, passing 70% completion percentage. Auburn, I think, would benefit a lot from getting Grayson McCall because you get a steady hand. You infuse some experience on day one with your starting quarterback being Grayson McCall, who's played a lot of football. It's not going to be a matter of, okay, can we sort of figure out this project of a quarterback? No knock on Robbie Ashford, but the metaphor that I used previously was with the situation that Auburn's in, with the vehicle currently not being in perfect status, right? The tire's a little bit leaky. The body of the vehicle is a little bit beat up. It's not the best personnel. It's not the best roster. So do you want the beat-up car being driven by somebody who just got their license, has one season under their belt, Robbie Ashford? Or would you rather someone who's played a whole lot of college football in Grayson McCall? That's how that helps Auburn. Now, for Grayson McCall, I think it's pretty clear that he would benefit from being at Auburn for exposure, right? I mean, playing in the SEC and NFL junior, that would answer a lot of questions that I would imagine scouts have about Grayson McCall translating to the professional level. So keep an eye on this. I think it helps both parties, and we'll see if there's anything that ends up coming of this. I think Florida is also going to be a player in Grayson McCall's recruitment. Nothing confirmed, nothing insightful that I have in terms of getting different reports, but that's just my feel on it. Florida also needs a quarterback, so keep an eye on them in the Grayson McCall sweepstakes. If you have not yet joined the party, we would love to have you. National Signing Day around the corner. Transfer portal season. Obviously, turning up the heat. Make sure you're subscribed. This is a 12-month-a-year sport. It's college football. We cover it as such. It allows us to have a job here. So we love that. Also, follow me on the socials at JD Piquel on Twitter and on Instagram. Another big-time player in the portal right now, Brennan Armstrong. He's the number 2 portal quarterback for us, number 8 player overall. All right, so this is a very high caliber player that's out there right now. He's going to visit Wisconsin and Oklahoma State. We'll start with Wisconsin. Phil Longo is the newly minted offensive coordinator there in Madison. He was at North Carolina previously. His offenses, to say the least, are quarterback friendly. Scored 33 points a game last year, helped develop Drake May into what will be essentially a bona fide first-round pick, if not one of the top picks overall. And his system is very much so pass-heavy. Like, they're going to throw the ball a lot. They averaged right around 37 attempts this past season, okay? So if you're Brennan Armstrong and you want to go play at the next level, which is basically what this looks like, it looks like it's a move to help his draft stock is jumping in the portal for Brennan Armstrong. If you want to help your draft stock, how about you throw it around the yard, put up some big numbers, answer some questions for scouts, and kind of erase whatever the 2022 season was for you. Like 2021, he was phenomenal, had over 31 touchdowns. I believe he had single-digit interceptions. Like, dude balled out. 2022, a much less impressive statistical showing. Virginia had their own issues in their first year under new head coach. Wipe all that away, go to a quarterback-friendly system, and play for the program that has a really high upside in Wisconsin. More on that in a second. The other school he's visiting in Oklahoma State, I think that is potentially the more proven commodity, the more high-floor option. And for them, Mike Gundy has a proven track record of helping and developing quarterbacks. Historically, a great offense, and you have to replace a quarterback in Spencer Sanders. So that's the world you live in right now if you're Oklahoma State. And I say they're the safer bet because you kind of have a good feel for what that coaching staff wants to do historically. You don't have to wonder too much about who Oklahoma State is going to be under Mike Gundy and that staff. For Wisconsin, we know them to be that ground and pound operation, play with a couple tight ends, play with a fullback. Like, that's who we've known them to be. It's going to be a whole new look there now under Luke Fickell and new offensive coordinator Phil Longo. So to a degree, you're kind of gambling on that system coming to fruition, or at least a competitive product in year 1 under a new staff. So it's a gamble, but if it pays off in spades, that would be big for Brennan Armstrong if he chooses to go to Wisconsin. So both these schools make sense. I see the fit for both schools. But at the end of the day, for Brennan Armstrong, this is a business decision. It's about getting your NFL draft stock up, and away, and I think he has a good chance to do that at both programs. So both impressive options for him if he does end up ending at one of those schools. Another player we're watching, Chris Marshall from Texas A&M. He's a former 5-star, currently the number 6 wide receiver in the transfer portal. Our director of scouting and rankings, Charles Power, his comp for him at the NFL level is Allen Robinson. Kind of that large catch radius, basketball background, good body control sort of player. So a guy who can help you right away with that frame. He visited Ole Miss on Tuesday, but all the smoke right now is going around TCU. Remember, TCU is also, according to rumors and rumblings, the leader in the clubhouse for Alabama's wide receiver, Joe Earl. Now, Chris Marshall is from the state of Texas, and I think TCU would make a little bit more sense, if I'm just looking at the numbers here, for what he could potentially do for his future professional stock. Because that's a little bit what this is about, right? Development, having something on tape for the pros. Like, I think TCU makes a whole lot of sense. Nothing against Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin has proven he can do whatever he needs to do with his personnel to allow his team to be successful. But looking at the numbers, Ole Miss last season made it clear they are a running football team. With Quinshon Judkins coming back again next season, inevitably. I think that'll kind of be their bell cow. TCU, a potent offense. Sonny Dykes has a history of being an aired out kind of guy. And I think just from a lifestyle standpoint, Chris Marshall was suspended mid-season at A&M. It was an indefinite suspension. And I like the TCU fit for him better just by nature of it being a smaller school, closer to home than Ole Miss would be. Just be able to focus on ball, get out of the SEC spotlight a little bit, and just go to work. I would like that for Chris Marshall, so that makes sense to me. We'll see what happens, but right now the RPM, I don't know how many picks are in there right now, but it's 95% leaning towards TCU. So the visit on paper is Ole Miss, but TCU is getting all the smoke right now for Chris Marshall. Again, a former 5-star, top 25 recruit. Whoever lands him, whether he's unproven or not at the college level is a debate in itself, but I think Chris Marshall is going to help your football team in a big way the first day on campus. Here's one of the more fascinating visitors from this upcoming visit weekend that I think we need to keep an eye on. Malik Hornsby, transferring from Arkansas to be determined, but he's visiting this weekend Nebraska. Now, Malik Hornsby is a guy who is just a superior athlete. I mean, sub 1,100-meter dash. Folks, that's real deal fast. He has been played at receiver at times. He played quarterback at times this year for Arkansas. And the reason for him jumping in the portal is just him feeling like, hey, I need to start somewhere this upcoming year. Like, if I want to be a quarterback and I want to make my money in the NFL as a quarterback, I need to prove it at the college level and get at least 1 year of starting experience under my belt. And there's a relationship there previously with Matt Rule from his high school days. Malik Hornsby, a guy that is from the state of Texas. Matt Rule, obviously, with his time at Baylor, recruited Malik Hornsby or made an effort to, and now full circle via the transfer portal, they're going to get him on campus for an official visit. Now, this is the second quarterback visitor in as many weeks for Nebraska, and they also visited Jeff Sims last week from Georgia Tech, or had him visit, rather. And that's interesting to me because Casey Thompson is still potentially coming back next year. There's nothing reported or confirmed about that. He has the option, it sounds like, to come back next year. Not sounds like, he does. And the interesting thing about this is Casey Thompson will likely undergo shoulder surgery, could miss the spring. And so I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but that doesn't necessarily inspire a ton of confidence in me and feeling like Casey Thompson is going to be the guy for them next year if you're visiting quarterbacks on back-to-back weeks. Also worth mentioning, they're dual threat guys, so maybe it tells you something about the direction the offense could go under Marcus Satterfield and what they're going to do from a run game standpoint. But at the end of the day, Malik Hornsby, he wants to be a quarterback. He's open to being a wide receiver, regardless of what he lines up as. I believe they are visiting him as a quarterback. But regardless of what he lines up at on your football team, he's a football player. He's a special athlete. He can help your team. Like I said, elite caliber speed. So keep an eye on that. That would be a big get for Nebraska if they do end up landing Malik Hornsby. So to recap it, the #1 player in the transfer portal, cornerback Fentrell Cypress from the University of Virginia, is visiting right now at Florida State. That is a very, very big fish. Grayson McCall expected to take a visit to Auburn. The quarterback from Coastal Carolina still going to play in the bowl game. But a lot of smoke right now around Grayson McCall and the Auburn Tigers. Brennan Armstrong taking not 1 but 2 visits. Wisconsin and Oklahoma State both make a lot of sense. Both would be business decisions for Brennan Armstrong and his professional draft stock. Chris Marshall from Texas A&M visited Ole Miss previously. A lot of smoke around TCU and potentially deciding to stay in state and end up being a Horned Frog. Malik Hornsby, like we had just said, the quarterback. Not just the playmaker, yes, but the quarterback is being recruited by Nebraska, taking an official visit, and whoever gets Malik Hornsby is getting a superior athlete and a guy who played quarterback at a really high level at the high school level. So those are the visitors. We'll keep an eye on it, but make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're locked in. We got a ton to get into. The transfer portal is just starting to turn up the heat, okay? There are guys from these college football playoff teams, and I promise you, I don't know what caliber they'll be, but there will be guys from those rosters that will eventually jump into the portal as well. So keep it locked right here. Make sure you're subscribed, and we're going to make sure we got you covered going forward. All right? Roll, party, roll. Now, speaking of the transfer portal, Florida State has been an absolute player in this whole operation. So I have my thoughts right here. We're about to bring on Josh Newberg to unpack this with him and get his thoughts. I want to kind of set the table for him just a little bit. Florida State right now has the number 6 portal class. It's early in the whole process. That window is going to obviously close down here, and I guess it is sub 40 days, 30-something days left in the first window. Average of 81 grade, and I think that Florida State is going to be a player in the portal. Obviously, they have been in the past, but I want to kind of just look to the future as to why I believe Florida State will be one of the big dogs when it comes to the transfer portal. And the first is because they're close. Like, a lot of what we can talk about with Florida State is they've had some promising success. Like, you've seen flashes on the field, and I think they're just a couple of pieces away from getting to being a ACC title team or being a team that competes in big-time bowl games in late December, early January. Like, the transfer portal, in some ways, you use it to fix appliances. It's not always like, hey, we just got to add depth. Sometimes it's, hey, that doesn't work. We know that we can get somebody who can make that work, a.k.a. Fentrell Cypress, putting him at corner. That would be a major upgrade. That would be an appliance fix for Florida State. And so what I say is they're close, all right? And with the portal, you're able to get past just close. Being 1 to 2 pieces away, it's made for the transfer portal. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, we would love to have you at the party. Also, follow me on the socials at JDPikel on Twitter and on Instagram. So keeping in that same vein of they're close, they're 1 to 2 pieces away, I think we're getting to the point with Florida State where 2023, we'll talk to Josh about this, but it could be expected to be the year for Mike Norvell. It's going to be his 4th season, and they have grown with him, the fan base has, and they've been patient to a degree and seen him succeed now in this year going 9-3. This is going to be the year where they expect the ACC title. Like, Florida State's fan base and Mike Norvell, I compare it to like a dating relationship. Winning 9 games, that's fun. Going on dates in the beginning of a relationship, that's fun. That's awesome. Meet the parents. You date for the better part of 3 years. At a certain point, it's going to be, okay, let's put a ring on this. Like, dating is great. Winning 9 games is great. But you and I both know that's not the expectation here. You know that's not the standard. That's not what we expect here as Florida State fans. We want you to win the whole conference. And with the nature of the ACC, I think that's going to be a little bit more doable. At least you can talk yourself into that being more doable this coming season. Clemson's going to have a new quarterback. Kid looks like an absolute baller, but it's a new quarterback nonetheless. It'll be his first year as a starter. UNC, they lose their offensive coordinator, the man behind Drake May. He's now gone to Wisconsin. Does that change things? Miami, we keep expecting them to get up off the mat, but they haven't done anything here in the first year under Mario Cristobal. So for Florida State, next year is expected to be the year, in my humble opinion. And the transfer portal is a way to shore up that roster and make sure that you finish through and follow through on those expectations. So the transfer portal, in my opinion, is becoming more and more of a need if you want to win the ACC. Now, here's the other piece that's crucial, and Josh can talk about this as well. They're going to have access to top talent. Jaheim Bell is a perfect example. Jaheim Bell was a guy that was offered by Florida State out of high school, and according to his mother, they were pretty excited about Florida State. Like, that offer meant a lot to him. But given where the program was at when he was offered, it wasn't an appealing option. They weren't in a competitive space for someone of Jaheim Bell's caliber. He knew, if I go to Florida State at this point in time, I'm not going to be able to achieve my goals on the field. Fast forward the tape, Jaheim Bell does what he does at South Carolina. Florida State continues to trend upward under Mike Norvell, and now Jaheim Bell says, you know what? I can go to Florida State and get done what I want to get done. I can go be a Knoll and be able to win and win consistently on the field. I can be developed to getting to the next level and making generational money for me and my future family. I think that says something. So the competitiveness of the program is at a different spot. On top of that, the NIL game, we all know it's a real thing. It sounds like they're starting to become more and more of a player in that space. At the very least, they're starting to push more and more to get into that space and to be one of the top dogs. And so if you have a good program and you have competitive NIL, I'm just telling you, that gives you access to the top tier, the creme de la creme, if you will, of the guys available in the transfer portal. Don't believe me? Fentrell Cypress, at the time of this video being live, is currently in Tallahassee. So keep an eye on the Noles. I think they're close. I think this is expected to be the year. They're cool with dating. They want a ring on it. Does the fan base and Mike Norvell. They're going to push for top talent. Now, welcoming in the man, the myth, the legend, a friend of the program. He does the Inside Scoop on the On3 YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed. You get the hard count and the Inside Scoop. The absolute GOAT, Josh Newberg. Josh, how we doing, my man?
Feeling good, feeling ready. Roll party.
You're looking good, man. You've been a busy man. I mean, live commitments. You had the Inside Scoop this morning. I mean, you're staying on camera, brother.
Yeah, my third time live. I mean, we did our first live 2 days ago, and today I've done 3 just in 1 day. So I'm raring to go. This is the season. It is pushing time.
Pushing time. I think you dubbed it on Twitter yesterday. It's Hayes Fawcett season now with commitments.
It is. Get those graphics fired up. Don't run out of ink.
Can't. You absolutely can't. I want to talk about Florida State with you, having been covering that program for an extended period of time. What is the model for Florida State when it comes to the transfer portal? Because you and I talked a little bit before the show. They have been a frequent flyer when it comes to using the portal.
Yeah, double-digit portal signees the last couple years for Florida State, and I think it's going to happen again this year. I think that Florida State still has some needs. Mike Norvell came in, purged that roster during the COVID year, still piecing it together, and he has done an incredible job in the transfer portal. When you go from Jermaine Johnson to Jared Verse, I mean, even Jordan Travis is a transfer portal candidate. So what is happening at Florida State is that they are just infusing the roster with talent. Mike Norvell's done a great job of pinpointing the talent that fits the needs for that program. And I don't think, though, that the goal every year, JD, is to sign 12 or 13 transfer portals. I think you want to eventually get that down to like 3 or 4. Currently, Florida State is doing something to the equivalent of living paycheck to paycheck, right? You bring in a one-year guy like a Jermaine Johnson who goes pro. You bring in the very next year a Jared Verse who plays so well that he might go pro. Then now you got to bring in another guy to fit that. Okay, slow down. Mike Norvell's doing it. And yes, you can live paycheck to paycheck very successfully, but it's not ideal. So for Florida State to really hit the sweet spot that they want to in the transfer portal, it'll look something more like adding 3 or 4 pieces to the roster rather than a total of 10 or 12 pieces to the roster from the transfer portal.
And they've currently got 3 guys in the boat via the portal. Obviously, Jaheim Bell being a big get for them commitment-wise. What is the needs that you see for this program going forward? Because like you said, they hit on a lot of these portal guys. Jared Verse, I mean, where are they without Jared Verse this season? The way that he impacted that LSU game. Fentrell Cypress, like we talked about in a previous segment, like you and I talked about before the show, he's on campus, #1 player in the transfer portal according to our portal rankings. What are the needs that you see for Florida State that they need to acquire via the portal?
We're only, about 10 days into the portal? And I think Florida State has already filled 2 of their 3 biggest needs. I think defensive tackle, big need. They get Darrell Jackson coming up from Miami, who started for them last year, has a family situation going on. He's from Tallahassee, so he gets the waiver. He's going to transfer without having to sit out. It is his second transfer. And then they get Jaheim Bell. You talked about him at the front end. Well, guess what? He is a huge piece. I know people are saying, oh, he's a tight end. He's way more than a tight end if you've ever watched Jaheim Bell. And Jaheim Bell, like you said, was recruited by Florida State in the 2019 cycle. He was a commitment to, he was the 2020 class. But he was briefly committed to rival Florida. He decommitted. He took a visit to Florida State. They just couldn't get the traction that they needed. FSU then went out and signed 6 tight ends since Jaheim Bell, and not a one of them has made a meaningful impact the way that Jaheim Bell will in Mike Norvell's offense. So after that, I think the third biggest need right now is defensive back. And like you said, they might be addressing that right now as we speak. One of the best portal defensive backs, Fentrell Cypress, is on campus in Tallahassee. I think that they would gladly sign him. You got a couple others, a couple offensive lineman needs that they definitely got to meet. But overall, I mean, 10 days into this thing, Florida State's doing really well in the transfer portal.
And Josh, what's the logic behind this? Because in some way, shape, or form, you could imagine it like shopping, like at the grocery store. Okay, I need eggs, I need milk, I need flour. Is it I need these things and then I'm out of the store? Or is it, okay, I got what I need, I might just peruse around a little bit more and, okay, I don't really need another wide receiver, but hey, one's available, he's an in-state kid, he's highly touted, maybe we add him to our roster. How much of that is going on between wants and needs at Florida State, in your opinion?
When Mike Norvell arrived at Florida State, one of the biggest needs was just offensive skill players. They lacked dynamic offensive skill players. So Could I see them taking a wide receiver? If he was a dominant outside guy, I think that's what they are looking for. But they took 4 transfer wide receivers last year. 4 transfer wide receivers. Obviously, Micah Pittman and Johnny Wilson, everybody heard about them. They did great, but Deuce Spann is also developing. And Winston Wright from West Virginia, unfortunately, got in a car accident before the season started. He almost made a comeback at the end of the year, but he's going to be back next year, and he could be a 1 or 2 for FSU. So I don't know if they're going to hit the portal for wide receiver, but if there's a dynamic offensive skill guy available that wants to come to FSU, they'll definitely give him a look.
You don't go broke getting paid. Same thing as you don't turn away top talent if they want to come on campus and if they want to suit up in your uniform. So I'm 100% in lockstep with you there, Josh. I wanted to just say this about Mike Norvell. I have just been so impressed listening to him in different post-game press conferences. Win or lose, I feel like he just talks and cares about the right things. And it's easy to listen to a press conference and say, okay, that's just coach speak. Yeah, maybe to a degree, but I think it was post-Florida. He just talked so much about the process internally. Like, he was happy they won the game, and he mentioned that a couple of times, but he continues to talk about the process, focusing on us, focusing on what we do, improving in-house. And honestly, you know who else talks about that a lot is Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, guys that got a whole lot of jewelry. So is Mike Norvell, Nick Saban, or Kirby Smart? That's probably too much weight to heap on his shoulders. But I'm just saying, I think they got a great one in Mike Norvell right now, man in the helm at Florida State. So, Josh, my question for you then is, what is the state of Florida State football? Is next year supposed to be the year in terms of winning the ACC?
The standard has slipped a little because FSU fans are mightily excited for a 9-win season. And over the course of FSU history, a 9-win season isn't something that FSU fans typically get excited for. But if you've seen where this team has been since Jimbo Fisher left in 2017, through the Willie Taggart tenure, into Mike Norvell's first year with COVID, I mean, there is plenty of reason for celebration in Tallahassee over a 9-win season. Now, they're not going to celebrate a 9-win season, though, every year. This is the one time I think that they're going to celebrate a 9-win season because, again, now that you get there, the standard, again, becomes the standard, which is competing for and winning the ACC on a yearly basis and being a player for the college football playoffs year in, year out. I think, ultimately, if Mike Norvell can do that, he can get up in the ranks of some of the other coaches you just named.
It's like dating, right? I mean, dating is great for, 3 years. Date for someone for 3 years is a long time, but on that 4th year and beyond, it's like, okay, what are we? Like, hey, are we just going to be a 9-win team under Mike Norvell, or can we take that next step and getting back to, like you said, the previous standard of winning the ACC? So I think you're on the money there, Josh. Anything on the recruiting trail with Florida State before we move on?
Oh, man. They have some visitors on campus. We went over a couple of the transfers that are there, but also 4-star wide receiver Andy Jean. Committed to the Florida Gators. You got to love a good in-state battle. Didn't really see this one coming, but he steps foot on campus in Tallahassee today for an official visit. Miami made a run at him a couple weeks ago. He kind of shut that down. We'll see what Florida State can do, but they got Hakeem Williams, a 5-star wide receiver out of South Florida. Gene is from Miami Northwestern, also a highly coveted receiver and committed to their rival, so we'll see what happens there. But, yeah, big things happening in Tallahassee all weekend.
Big things popping, little things stopping. Signing day right around the corner. We'll see who the Noles can land at the 11th hour and put pen to paper, and also who they can get via the portal, as that will obviously stretch on into January, and then post-spring we'll have a whole other window, so it'll be a whole lot of fun. Someone else who is on the recruiting trail, someone that you and I have talked a fair amount about, Coach Prime, is now the head man in Boulder, Colorado. They got one more game this coming weekend. Jackson State does in the Celebration Bowl. But with signing day very quickly approaching, set the table for me a little bit on what you expect from Colorado when signing day does get here.
I think it's going to be more bark than bite this weekend for the main reason you said. Deion Sanders is coaching a game at Jackson State this weekend. A little unconventional, but it's understood. So right now, the headline visitor for the weekend is 4-star athlete Malachi Coleman. Formerly committed to Nebraska. He decommitted, but still has a relationship with Matt Rule. He took an official visit to Nebraska, didn't recommit on that trip, and he decided this weekend to bump Michigan to go check out Colorado. So coming on the heels of a 4-star running back, Dylan Edwards, committing to Colorado just about a week ago. Now Malachi Coleman's on campus, and also we can report that 4-star, or he's not a 4-star anymore, but Former USF wide receiver transfer Jimmy Horn will also be arriving in Boulder today. I think he's going to also check out Houston this weekend before the dead period. So there is some action going on in Colorado, but here's what I think is going to happen. Deion's going to wait until that late signing period. He's going to have the month of January where a lot of prospects that do wait till the February signing day have already taken their official visits to the primary teams that are recruiting them. So Deion might be in a situation where he gets the final visit for a couple, maybe 4-star, maybe a 5-star too. But right now, I think this weekend is going to be a little quiet unless we get breaking news. But they do have 2 big prospects on campus in Boulder.
Josh, you always tell me, follow the visits, follow the timing of the visits. Who did they get to visit with last? Who was in the home last? If you can be in the home last, if you can be the most recent visit, it doesn't hurt your chances, that's for sure. And I'm just telling you this, I would not want to be having Deion Sanders right after me. Like the charisma and just the sell of, hey, come and play for an NFL Hall of Famer. I can get you to where you want to go. Even better, I've been where you want to go. I just have to think that's so attractive for a lot of kids. And you just said it, February signing period, what was previously National Signing Day. Now we have the early signing day. But the longer that these kids stay uncommitted or unsigned, rather, do you think that just ends up tilting more in favor of Deion Sanders, or are they safe regardless, you think?
Well, it gives Deion a chance. And one thing he can do, if he has a little bit of traction in December with a 4-star recruit that maybe is up in the air and hasn't decided yet, what he might try to do is convince him to wait till February. Hey, why rush it? Come visit us in January. And I think that's smart because, like I said, you can only take one official visit per school. So say you're considering LSU, Michigan, and Colorado, and you took your Michigan visit in the summer and you took your LSU visit in September. Well, you can go back there, but the school can't pay for you to go back there. So it might be a scenario where Deion can feed on some of the remaining prospects and might have an advantage because they can come to Colorado and may have already burned their official visit to these other schools. So I still think there's some time for Deion to get some traction with the high school ranks, but you know he's going to pound the portal, and we're not even done there. We know what's in the portal now, and it looks great, but there's a lot of teams in the playoffs or in bowl games who have athletes on their roster that maybe they don't want to shake the boat. They don't want to put themselves in the portal before their team plays a bowl game or before the playoffs begin, and they're just looking around waiting. So, there's going to be more options than what we see now for Deion Sanders in Colorado.
I like what you said. If Penn hasn't yet met paper and Deion Sanders is on the recruiting trail, everybody's up for grabs. And like you said, the transfer portal going to be a very big piece we anticipate of what Colorado does in the 2023 season. Help me understand the balance, if you're Deion Sanders, between building your team for the future on the recruiting trail, but then also hitting the portal hard like nobody's business and revamping that 1-11 roster.
I think you hit the portal as hard as possible.
Yep.
This is kind of, we just talked about Mike Norvell's strategy of what he had to do when he purged the roster of taking double-digit transfers year after year. I fully expect Deion Sanders to take double digits, right? I mean, he
took 20 at Jackson State. He took 20 at Jackson State. Like, he's got Power 5 branding now to Colorado.
He told the team at the presser, one, he introduced the transfer quarterback, so now you got one transfer already in there. But he said, I got 10 more coming with me. So we can count for at least 10 from Jackson State if what Deion says what holds up is true. And then right now, it's about filling that roster out with as much talent as you can. You don't need to worry about, is this guy this year because we have other guys on the roster that are juniors and we don't want to bring in a senior. It's like, no. Whatever infuses the most talent to your roster as fast as possible, I think that's what Deion Sanders does this offseason when it comes to the transfer portal.
And think about how we would talk about Colorado this time next year if they win like 2 or 3 games. We're saying, okay, well, the Deion experience is going to take some time, or it didn't work. Or if you get that talent via the portal, infuse it right away, and let's just say Colorado makes a bowl game. Let's say they're a 7-8 win football team. Well, then it's like, okay, there's some proof of concept. Maybe this train's got a little bit of steam. And so I'm 100% with you. Infuse as much talent as possible into the 2023 roster. Show proof of concept. Show that you can come and do whatever you want to do at Colorado. You can achieve all your dreams by coming to Boulder. And then high school kids are going to say, you know what? Maybe I do want to go play for Coach Prime. You know what? Actually, that black and gold would look pretty good on me. So I'm 100% with you, Josh. I think that's the formula, and I think that's probably the way they're going to go. But going back to recruiting, with you being a national recruiting analyst for here at On3, Colorado, as of today, has the number 60 class in America. Now, I expect that to change. Coach Prime's going to hit the recruiting trail hard after the bowl game. But if we're just sort of having a hypothetical conversation here, how high do you think would be an encouraging ranking for this class right now? Like, what would be a successful signing class for them from a ranking standpoint?
How high can the Buffaloes go? Well, they are in Colorado, so they can probably go pretty high. But
altitude.
Altitude's pretty high up there. 65, I think getting into the low 30s is realistic. Now, Malachi Coleman, when you're recruiting, if you can land a Malachi Coleman, that's going to bump you up a lot because the teams that you're recruiting, your neighbors at 65, are not recruiting, top 100 players like a Malachi Coleman. So you land one, you're instantly jumping probably 10, 12 spots. I don't judge Deion by anything that he does this class. This is like grab what you can in a mad scramble, but next year is going to be what counts. And Deion is going to pile it up in 2024. You got to remember, this offseason, Deion will be king. Deion, until the season starts, is going to be undefeated. What he does in the offseason, everybody's going to take notice, everybody's going to talk about, and it's going to be hype. The expectations are going to be high. Doesn't mean that they're going to go out and win a bunch of games, but no matter what, we know that they are going to be the king of the offseason. Everybody's going to be talking about him. And what Deion sets up for 2024 is really what I would judge him on when it comes to recruiting.
Lane Kiffin being the portal king, Coach Prime set himself up to be the offseason king after the 2023 season. Josh, appreciate it, man. Let's shift gears one more time. So we'll hit the Tesla Ferrari kind of deal here. Georgia. Obviously, they still have the college football playoff. They're likely going to have a chance to win another national title. It's not a pick, but we're just saying they're number one seed. All right, call a spade a spade. Number 2 class right now in the On3 team consensus recruiting rankings, 23 total commits.
Yeah.
Set the table for me a little bit with the Bulldogs as we get closer to signing day.
Well, Georgia is, guess what, looking to finish strong. Go figure. But they picked up, and they started about a week ago on Sunday, 2 Sundays ago, when they landed 5-star IMG edge Samuel Mpimba. That was a big pickup coming off the edge, but they are not done. Georgia started trending on the recruiting prediction machine this week for 5-star edge Damon Wilson out of Venice, Florida, overtaking Ohio State this week. What it looked like was going to be, okay, Georgia picks up Samuel Mpimba, their 5-star edge. 5-star edge Keon Keeley goes to Alabama, and 5-star edge Damon Wilson goes to Ohio State, right? Everybody gets a little bit of 5-star edge action. Well, UGA's being greedy, and right now it looks like on signing day, they are trending in that direction, at least I should say, for Damon Wilson, a 5-star edge. The day after signing day, 4-star defensive lineman Jordan Hall, an interior guy, he's going to be making his decision, and that comes down to another SEC battle between UF and Georgia, a heated one because UF really needs an interior defensive lineman. UGA, they're just being greedy. They just want all the top players, so they're going to go after him. Then an intriguing prospect that we've been talking about here in the office a lot is 5-star athlete Nicholas Harbor. He's a track star. So he's not in a rush to make his decision. He runs track in the spring, so he'll be announcing his decision in February. That's going to be interesting. And then you also have Sadir Mitchell. He's a 4-star defensive lineman that is currently committed to Texas, that has been flirting with Georgia, and Kirby Smart is looking to make a big flip when he makes his final decision. It's going to be interesting. Also, Daniel Harris, he's another name to mention. He's a top 150 DB that decommitted from Georgia. Chad Simmons thinks that they have a good shot at retaining him. You don't always see that with players that decommit from a school. You very rarely see them go back, but there's a chance that Georgia could close with him as well. I know we say that Alabama has that number 1 class taken care of right now, but if Georgia can make a few of these things go their way, and how could I forget the number 1 tight end in the nation as well, Deuce Robinson out of Arizona. The number 1 tight end in the nation is looking at Georgia. The proof of concept there with Brock Bowers has Deuce interested. There is some way that potentially, now Alabama would probably have to lose somebody as a surprise, but it would be fun to see Georgia make a run at that number 1 spot.
And I mean, they're pushing, like you said, they're building in the trenches. A lot of guys that could commit, or the RPM is trending towards them committing. they just have a wealth of riches on the defensive line and guys that we've seen them develop over the years. And that was really the difference in the Tennessee game. I know Tennessee fans are going to hate to hear that, but what we talked about so much after that game ended was, yes, Tennessee is extremely talented. They are building a program, but you saw the byproduct of multiple five-star class upon five-star class on five-star class in the trenches pay dividends on that Saturday. Now, I want to ask you this, Josh. Like you said, Alabama currently the #1 team in the On3 consensus team recruiting rankings, Georgia at 2. Let's just say they finish 1 and 2 respectively. How big of a difference is it to have the #1 class versus the #2 class in your estimation?
Not very big if you look at the class that Alabama's bringing in, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, it's a top class even for Nick Saban. So Alabama's doing something incredible. Georgia's doing something incredible. And you got to remember, Georgia's been doing this. Like, they've been stacking classes. They've been winning football games. If they finish at #2 this year, we're splitting hairs. It's an incredible class. Both Georgia and Alabama, both top classes. I think they're well on their way to continuing their rise as possibly the next college football dynasty.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, the whole conversation around #1 versus #2, that definitely makes sense. Like, I guess you still have five-star guys stacked up regardless. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this because we heard Nick Saban this past offseason talk about A&M beating them in recruiting in regards to rankings. How much do coaches care about rankings versus like, hey, let's just get our guys? And if our guys ends up being a #7 ranked class versus the #1 ranked class, so be it. Does rankings play a factor for these coaches in your mind, Josh?
I've talked to coaches, assistant coaches. Now, head coaches, probably not. I've talked to assistant coaches in college football that have told me they have incentives in their contract based on the recruiting site's rankings.
Wow, interesting.
So there are coaches out there that not only care, but are financially incentivized to land top talent.
That's
I don't know
awesome.
if that goes
Wow.
on everywhere
Okay.
in the country, but I have had conversations. I don't think head coaches really look at it too much. Now, it does help to build hype around your program. So you always want to get the best players, but ultimately, do they care about the rankings? No, they care more about what's on their war room recruiting boards than what is on our star rankings. However, there's something that correlates because we generally see with our top ranked players, that's where the most offers are, that's where the most interested, that's where the most competition is. So I think, yes, ultimately these coaches do want to have top rated classes, but I don't know if they necessarily look at the rankings the same way fans look at the rankings.
And especially in the SEC for Georgia, going back and forth now with Alabama for a lot of these top guys, like you would have to imagine maybe they have him as the #1 defensive lineman and Georgia has him as the #2 defensive lineman. Like, at the end of the day, both these coaches, both Saban and Coach Smart, they want him on their roster. Like, at the end of the day, that's kind of the fact of the matter. So I think that's really interesting, though, what you said, the financial incentive in different contracts. That's what you call inside scoop. That's inside scoop right there, folks. You don't get that anywhere else if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel. Do you need another reason to besides that? I don't think so. I'll get you out of here with this, Josh. We've taken a ton of your time, and it's about time you get to just lay down and have a drink of water. What is the expectation for you from Georgia in regards to the transfer portal? Because they haven't been super active historically. What do you think will be their move this coming season?
Add a couple pieces.
Okay.
I think Georgia's at the point where when you're recruiting #1 player at your position after #1 player at your position, you kind of got to let that marinate a little bit. You don't want to rock the boat too much. Like what we were saying about Deion Sanders, not caring, just infusion of talent, infuse it as much as you can. Georgia, you got to have a little bit of rhythm to your rhyme when you're recruiting the portal because you don't want some of these recruits that you spent a lot of time, money, and resources on to leave. That's a waste. You spent all this time recruiting them. You spent all this time evaluating. Now they're on your roster. You've invested strength and conditioning time with them. You want to keep that investment and get them through your ranks because it helps with culture. You bring a freshman in as a freshman and he's in your program for 3-4 years. Those are the guys that help set the culture in the locker room. So I think when it comes to Georgia and how they pick to the portal, it's a little bit different than a lot of teams. They're looking for a little cherry on top instead of a massive infusion of talent.
It's one of those things, too, where it's like, hey, you already got the #1 guy at that position out of high school. Like, you already won. You already have the best option probably for next season in-house. He was just a backup last year getting developed. So I'm curious to see if we see them treat the portal how Alabama did this past season, adding just premier players like a Jahmyr Gibbs and I think Jermaine Burton, they were hoping to get a little bit more out of. He's going to come back and see if they get more return on investment there. But that's kind of the thought process that I think we could see from Georgia. But what you said is exactly right. Adding pieces and not getting too ahead of yourself and letting that top talent that you already acquired on the recruiting trail marinate just a little bit. Well, Josh, host of the Inside Scoop, national recruiting analyst for us here at On3. You do a phenomenal job. Appreciate you letting us take so much of your time. And what do you say we do it again real soon? Another live show tomorrow. Get ready for National Signing Day. Sound good?
Do it live, JD.
We'll do it live.
Do it live.
Appreciate it, Josh. Have a great one, brother.
See ya.
Again, Josh Newberg. If you haven't yet followed him on Twitter, would recommend you do that. If you haven't subscribed yet, you get the Inside Scoop with Josh Newberg. We're hosting that whole operation, a ton of recruiting insight. You don't want to miss a minute of it. I've said it before. This is a 12-month-a-year sport. It's why Josh and I get to have a job and work here, because college football goes crazy for 12 months on the calendar year. We don't want you to miss any of it, so make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you've now joined us at the party. If you haven't yet, there's no time like the present, all right? Would love to have you. Also, if you have not yet gotten into the live chat, dropped us a question, now is the time to do it. We're going to give you one more segment. After that, kicking open the door, cutting the red tape. You know how we do it around here. We're bringing y'all to the party even more so than you already are. Remember, it's your show. We're going to get to some of your questions. Golly, this is awesome. So fired up. They still have football games they are going to play. Michigan and TCU set to get after it in the Fiesta Bowl. Semifinal style. College football playoff. Going to be an absolute blast. In games like this, where the lights are the brightest, the stage is the biggest, sometimes it's the supporting actors that end up being the difference makers in these sort of situations. So I got a couple for you from both TCU and Michigan who I think could be X factors in this game. The first guy I'm looking at, Will Johnson, the cornerback for Michigan. He was also someone we featured in our key battles for this game, but I would expect him to be lined up across from Quentin Johnston for TCU. Now, this is interesting because Will Johnson matches up from a size perspective relatively well. About 6'3", helps across the board most of the year for Michigan, lining up against big receivers, so this is no new task for him. The thing is, though, Quentin Johnston's an absolute freak show. Okay, he's going to play in the NFL, likely for a really long time, and likely wreak havoc against a lot of those other teams. So Will Johnson, only a freshman, will have his work cut out for him. The reason why I think this is interesting is because with Quentin Johnston, I don't think shutting him down is super realistic. Like, if you finish the game and you're Will Johnson and Quentin Johnston only has 70 yards and no touchdowns, like, I think that's not a bad day at the office. Now he got 70 yards against you, so you didn't obviously take away Quentin Johnston from the game plan, but being able to minimize that, just having it not be Quentin Johnston beating you if you're Michigan, I think that would be huge for Michigan and help them control the tempo of the game offensively. Because if Quentin Johnston just goes off during the game, it's likely that TCU is getting some quick scores. They're likely going right around 30 points if Quentin Johnston has himself a day. If not, TCU maybe has to run the ball a little bit more. Maybe they have to dink and dunk a little bit more. I think that would be the world that would favor Michigan. Also worth noting, Max Duggan, extremely talented quarterback. When you watch him on tape, if that first read isn't there, he trusts his freakish athleticism, and he likes to get downhill and run the football. Now, if you're Michigan and you take away that first read, which a lot of the time is Quentin Johnston, you allow then that front seven that you have to go and hunt a little bit more. So it would allow that front seven to impact the game even more so, being able to get into chase mode after Max Duggan. But again, it starts with Will Johnson being able to win that matchup, being an X factor in this game, and stopping Quentin Johnston on the outside. Very, very important. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, we would love to have you at the party. The Fiesta Bowl is right around the corner. We're not done talking about this game. We're going to predict it. We're going to break it down for you in its entirety here in the very near future on this channel. We've had somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 of you Michigan Wolverine fans join us. We're so glad you're here. TCU fans, y'all started pouring in as well. If you haven't yet subscribed, we want you at the party. Follow me on the socials, at JD Pickell on Twitter and on Instagram. A lot of interaction we have there that we can also do here. An X factor for TCU that I could foresee is D. Winters, the linebacker. Now, he has 7.5 sacks on the year for TCU. That's leading the entire team. And the Michigan offensive line is really good. And they have very much so teed it up for J.J. McCarthy to have the success that he's had, and J.J. McCarthy has cashed in a big way. But with young quarterbacks, the hope would be to speed up that shot clock. And credit Michigan, there hasn't been a game where J.J. McCarthy's been running for his life every other play. But D. Winters, with his ability to get after the quarterback historically to this point in the year, if he can make J.J. McCarthy just a little bit uncomfortable, just get him off his launch point a little bit more frequently than he would like to, well, then I think you open it up to, well, is there a couple turnovers there for the young quarterback? We haven't really seen that signature, ugly, young quarterback kind of game from J.J. McCarthy. Does it exist? Potentially, does it exist in this game? I think if you want to have a chance to see that high turnover game from Michigan, you would have to find a way to apply pressure. The best guy to do that, D. Winters for TCU. So speeding up the shot clock will be really important for that Horned Frog defense. And for J.J. McCarthy, how he manages that will tell a lot of the story in this game. So D. Winters being an X factor, I think the story writes itself. Now, Colston Loveland, the tight end for Michigan, is an X factor that we actually talked about in the Ohio State game. And guess what? Caught a big-time touchdown pass from J.J. McCarthy to open up the second half. So, yeah, he was an X factor. I think he's an X factor again in this game. Big boy, 6'5", 230. If you're TCU, I don't know that you have somebody that you like in a matchup with him. He's, like I said, a pretty big frame, but he can also run. And what Michigan's going to want to do with him is connect a lot on play action, whether it's a corner route on 3rd and 3, whether it's a flat route on 4th and goal. There is going to be a lot of different moments within this game where off play action, they're looking for Colston Loveland. How does TCU address that? Do they put somebody over the top? Do they take a guy out of the box and try and man up with Colston Loveland? I don't know, but I'm just saying I think he's an X factor from a pre-snap perspective in terms of how you have to line up and guard him, and then also how much you want to gamble in those play action scenarios and how much coverage you don't give him. So Colston Loveland, from a matchup perspective and from a personnel perspective across the board, will impact this game, and I fully expect him to have a solid day of receiving in this one, to say the least. So keep an eye on him. Schoonmaker obviously will be another X factor, but I think Colston Loveland's the one to watch based on the versatility he brings to the table and the issues he can present for you if you're TCU. So the last X factor that I'm telling you about in this game is wide receiver Tay Barber. Now, Tay Barber has been a stick of dynamite for the Horned Frogs. 17.5 yards of reception. Y'all, that's ridiculous. Like, if there's a big play happening for TCU, a lot of the times it's going to Tay Barber. 34 receptions, close to 600 yards in the year, 4 touchdowns. Here's why I think he's the X factor. For Will Johnson, I don't think it'll be just Will Johnson on Quentin Johnston, if you hear what I'm saying here. I think it would be irresponsible of Michigan as a defense to say, let's go man-on-man, our freshman, against one of your top receivers, if not one of the top receivers in the country. You may see some of that, but I think a lot of the time there will be a safety valve plugged in there where there's a safety help over the top. You can't have it all the time, but I think you'll see it some of the time. So when Michigan allocates extra resources to taking away Quentin Johnston, can Tay Barber step up and make those explosive kind of plays? When he has man-on-man coverage, when it's just Tay Barber against Michigan, can he step up to the plate? Because Quentin Johnston has been taken away. When you take away one guy, typically it leaves one less guy to cover your other receivers. And so Tay Barber will have a couple of opportunities in this game. Can he make good on them? Explosive plays will be paramount for TCU in this football game. Because if you don't have some quick strike scores against Michigan, they're just going to hand the ball off and be that weight on your shoulders that will eventually cause you to crumble in the 3rd and 4th quarter. Like J.J. McCarthy says, they'll just have the pipes burst on you. So being able to have quick scores, especially early in the game, I think you look to Quentin Johnston, but also very much so Tay Barber. 17.5 yards reception. Just stupid. So keep an eye on him. The X factors, to recap it for you, Will Johnson going back and forth in a battle a lot of this game with Quentin Johnston will be extremely important to how they play Max Duggan and to how much this Michigan defense is able to hold up and the tempo that TCU has to play at. On the defensive side of things for TCU, on the offensive side of things for Michigan, D. Winters, the linebacker for the Horned Frogs, is the sack leader for that unit. And if he can speed up the shot clock for J.J. McCarthy and force some pressure, throw a whole new variable into this game. Because if J.J. McCarthy If that sped up shot clock causes him to turn the ball over more frequently than we're accustomed to seeing, you spot extra possessions for your explosive offense at TCU, and good things likely would happen with that. So how much can D. Winters impact the game is something I'm very excited to see. Colston Loveland, the tight end for Michigan, another young buck. He's going to be a big-time factor in this game, a big-time X factor, to stick with the theme of the segment. Watch for him on 3rd down in short yardage and 4th down in short yardage. I think he's also just a problem over the middle. I don't know who you match up with for him, but especially in those short yardage situations, if they go play action, Colston Loveland can make you pay if you don't address him accordingly on the back end. So keep an eye on him. Can't miss him, 6'5", 230. Lastly, Tay Barber, stick a dynamite in the slot for TCU. When Quentin Johnston gets extra coverage, extra resources allocated his way, that means there's a little less attention on Tay Barber. Tay Barber, can you make it count? When money's on the table, can you cash in? So those are your X factors. Going to be a whole lot of fun to break this one down and predict it here in the very near future. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we're going to predict it here very, very soon. Very excited for that one. Can't wait to watch that one. New Year's Eve. Should be a whole lot of fun. Should be a party. A fiesta, if you will. So roll Fiesta. Okie doke. Best thing we do. This entire operation. You know him. You love him. He's your mother's favorite producer. Nick, heavy lifter break. Nick, how we doing, my guy?
Dude, I was doing great. You threw me for a loop there. That was a heck of an introduction.
That's you, man. My mom tells me all the time, she goes, Nick Brake, out of all the producers, is my favorite producer. I don't blame her. I don't blame her one bit, man. How's the live chat looking? How we doing?
Live chat's looking good. Thanks, everybody, for joining. I've had a lot of people stop by. Some good questions. How about we start with a good friend of mine, Minecraft Arenas. Good friend from the comments, of course, from the chat. Minecraft Arena says, if Bo Nix leaves, will Oregon go for a grad transfer to redshirt Dante, or just start him as a true freshman? Hey, that's assuming he's there.
That's a very good question. Yeah, Dante Moore, I don't know if he's on Flip Watch. All I'm going to say is hashtag Dante to LA was trending, I believe, like 2 days ago. So keep an eye on that. I just personally have a feel he's going to stick with the Oregon Ducks. It's just so late in the process, and I think that's kind of where he settled on. So if he does end up getting to campus, does end up putting pen to paper and signs with the Oregon Ducks, I think if Bo Nix were to leave, you sort of assess the whole thing in fall camp. Because in fall camp, that's when a lot of the quarterback battles make themselves clear, and you'll have a good gauge then for, hey, can we play this freshman? Is he a guy that can get us to where we expect to be as a program, to quote Dan Lanning? I think that's going to be really telling. I would lean towards redshirting him just because I think the transfer portal is going to have a couple of guys that you can win now with. And with Dante Moore, there is such a thing as playing too early. Now, if he was forced to play too early, it sounds like, according to Charles Power of On3, the director of scouting and rankings, he feels like he is relatively polished, and so he could be one of the most college-ready guys in this 2023 cycle. So there's a lot of angles to look at it. My feel would be go get yourself a grad transfer, have him and Dante Moore go back-to-back, or battle it out, rather, and go back and forth, and just kind of see where you stand in fall camp. That's my feel on it, but Dante Moore, got to get him in the boat first. Got to put pen to paper on National Signing Day, and I know Oregon Duck fans are holding their breath to get their quarterback of the class to Eugene here sooner rather than later. Great question, though. Appreciate it, Minecraft Arena, jumping in the chat, man. Yep. He was one of the first ones, too, wasn't he, Nick?
Oh, sure was. Sure was. So always first, too. I don't know if there's an alarm bell that goes off.
That's
but
crucial.
Minecraft Arenas, we're so glad you come almost every single show. There's a question from Koke. Shedeur Sanders or Cordell Stewart better CU quarterback, JD?
Shedeur Sanders or Cordell Stewart? Well, Shedeur Sanders hasn't put on a uniform yet, so we'll keep an eye on it. But Cordell Stewart, for those of you that don't know, they called him Slash, and he was an absolute dog at the college level as well as the NFL level. He played like quarterback, wide receiver, did a lot of things. So I'm going to say Cordell Stewart for right now, but I'll tell you this, I would very much anticipate Shedeur Sanders to have a lot of weapons around him, and Colorado offensively, I think is going to be fun to watch in the years to come. So Cordell Stewart right now, but keep an eye on Shedeur Sanders. Also Shedeur Sanders, it should be mentioned, hasn't officially entered the portal, hasn't officially joined the program, but Coach Prime, Coach Deion Sanders, did also say at his opening press conference, that's your quarterback, and pointed to his son. Said he's going to have to earn it, but that's your quarterback. So writing's on the wall, but Cordell Stewart until Shedeur Sanders ends up getting some game action. Good question, though. I love it.
Hey, and Shedeur Sanders is the latest victim to me just crudely mispronouncing their name. So apologize to you if you are watching by any chance. C Clear, any chance that Sark talks Bijan Robinson into coming back for another year?
C Clear, we're so glad that you have tuned into this program. I believe there's a 0% chance that Bijan Robinson comes back. And if you're a Texas fan, I think you just say, thank you so much, Bijan Robinson. Best wishes. Gave his heart and soul to the University of Texas at Austin. Stuck with that program to the ups and the downs through a 5-7 year into this year. In the day and age of player mobility, where you absolutely know Bijan Robinson could have gotten a bag and a half going somewhere else, decided to stick it out in Austin. So Bijan Robinson's going to the NFL. That's not official yet, but it's just about as official as it gets over here for us on the hard count. But yeah, I don't think so, to answer that question, Nick. I would love to see it. Be fun for college football. Selfishly, would love to get one more year of number 5 in the burnt orange. It'd be fun from a fan perspective, but I think he's as good as gone.
Yeah, that's pretty safe to say. We've seen his last, well, we will soon see his last game in Texas gear. JD, before we go, we'll ask maybe 1 or 2 questions, but I do want to give a quick shout out to Ryan McCulloch. Says, what's up, JD? I remember watching you on Sikkim 365. So we've got an OG JD fan.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, appreciate it, Ryan. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you finding us. Yeah, we've come a long way since Waco, Texas, from being in a makeshift apartment lobby to now being able to be in a studio. A whole lot of fun. But no, appreciate it, Ryan. That's good stuff. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. One more question. You good with that?
Let's do it, brother.
Okay, it's not Drago, but it's Drico. So we've got a new person in town. What 2 teams will be in the Pac-12 championship next season in college football, JD?
So, Nick, I could very much see a rematch of what we saw this year. I mean, Utah, everybody loves to count them out. I had them counted out earlier this year when they had lost their 3rd game, and they just continued to show who they are as a program under Kyle Whittingham. They will be ready to play. I think they're going to be back in that Pac-12 title game. I think we're going to get a rematch. I think USC is going to be back in it as well. They have one company. You hit the portal hard, get the required pieces that you need in the trenches, and I think you find yourself back in that game. That's where I would lean today, Nick. We'll see what happens when all this portal dust settles and we have a good feel for everyone's roster. But right now, I would be hard-pressed to decide against a USC-Utah matchup.
Dude, I'm telling you, before I go, it's amazing how in the chat there was absolutely no Pac-12 conversation when we started doing this live show, and now it's taking over, and I love
to see it, man.
You got it, yeah, absolutely. Gotta
Best
give
Coast.
The West Coast some love, JD. That's about all for us. So we'll get back to that chat. If I didn't get a question in from you, come back on Tuesday. We'll be back here and ready to roll. JD, I'll see you.
Good deal. Nick, appreciate you, man. Appreciate all you do, folks. He's making everything that you see here happen. In addition to being the keeper of the queue, production of the show, keeper of the queue, Nick Brake, absolute extraordinaire, a 5-star we're very grateful to have on our team. Okay, well, that does it for us here, but we're on podcast. So if you missed portions of the show or you just want to listen to the show on the go and don't want to have a visual with it while you're driving or whatever it may be, we're on Spotify. We're also on Apple. Leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a question. We'll do our best to get to that in future shows. We are so, so grateful to have you along for the ride. This community that we're building here is special. I think it's unlike anything else in the college football media landscape, and I say that with pride and very much so gratitude towards y'all for making this a reality. So there is still a lot more left in the season. Like I said, transfer portal turning up the heat, recruiting season turning up the heat. Make sure you're locked in. Josh Newberg and I will be back on this channel very, very shortly, give you some signing day warm-up coverage. Going to be a whole lot of fun, so make sure you're locked in with that. Also, like I always say, follow me on the socials, at JD Piquel on Twitter and Instagram. You won't miss a thing. We love you. We appreciate you. We're going to keep the party rolling. We will see y'all next time.